You've been out there grinding, applying, interviewing. You finally got an offer letter. Congratulations. I'm super excited. But what do you do with that offer letter? Do you accept it as it is? Do you negotiate? And if you choose to negotiate, how do you do it in a way that will benefit you and not insult or sour the deal at all? In this week's episode, we are continuing the 6-part series of getting that cybersecurity job with Stephen Semmelroth, and we're talking about how to negotiate that offer letter. We're going to tell you what you can do to get more money, alternative ideas for compensation, and also things that you shouldn't do and be aware of. All right, let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm loving this 6-part series that we're doing with Stephen Semmelroth. There's a lot of great information. If you haven't seen the other videos, I suggest you check them out. We're going through kind of the career life cycle or the job life cycle. So we talked first about how to get a tight resume, how you can interview well. And in this week, we're assuming that you've interviewed well and now you're going to get an offer letter. Offer letters are awesome. And, there's certain protocols in the industry that you may not be aware of. It can be incredibly uncomfortable for some people, myself included. I'm, really uncomfortable with negotiating. And it's mainly because I feel like if I get an offer and I push back and say, hey, like, I want whatever, $10,000 more, I'm actually going to insult the company, or I'm going to kind of start the relationship off on the wrong foot, being seen as greedy. So I typically just accept the offer that is given to me, which is, probably money that I'm leaving on the table. I have personally gotten some alternative compensations that I feel more comfortable about negotiating, and we're going to get into that in the video. But what I really want you to take away from this video is, you can write down these things because like Stefan's going to tell you exact numbers that you should be asking for, percentages of your offer letter. He's going to tell you how you can write the email back to the hiring manager, back to the recruiter on how to get that money. It's a business transaction and there is certain protocols. I'm very, very excited for this episode because I really hope that you're going to be able to get an extra $6,000, $10,000, $15,000 compensation that you wouldn't have normally gotten just because you had accepted the offer letter as is. Now, really quick, I'm Jerry Ozier. This is Simply Cyber, the YouTube channel designed to help you make and take a cybersecurity career further, faster. And sometimes we talk to experts like Stefan, and sometimes we dig in deep on the tech stuff and do labs. So if that's interesting to you, if you want a career in cybersecurity or level up, consider checking out the other videos on the channel. We produce a video every Monday, and we've been live streaming every Thursday at 4:30. So if that's interesting, come hang out and let's have a good time. All right, so let's get into the video. I strongly encourage that you take out a pen and a notepad or bookmark this one because the offer letters don't come that often. Most people don't switch jobs all that often. Once you get an offer letter, you're pretty excited and you want to take that job. You can get some more money. You can get, sent to conferences. You might be able to get like a car. I mean, it's cool what we talk about in this video. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. When you get the offer letter, what should you be initially thinking about, and how are you analyzing that?
Well, the first thing you think about is the beach that you're gonna be on in 3 months.
Yeah.
Uh, no, no, no. So in all seriousness, when I was when I was still running my recruiting company, this was my favorite part. This is absolutely my favorite part. More fun than getting the commission for doing the recruiting. Like this is so much fun of getting that offer letter. It's also terrifying because there's this massive potential commitment or perceived massive potential commitment. And and what does it all mean? What does it all mean? And how do you work it? How does it go back and forth? So let's talk about let's talk about a couple things that you're going to see on an offer letter usually. The first thing that, as you mentioned, everybody looks down to is they go straight to the dollar amount. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've done an amazing self inventory, that dollar amount might not, like me, the commission actually was less fun than my candidates getting a job offer. Okay, so you've got your minimum. Great. We have to have that much to eat. We've got this, we've got that, we've got that. What do the benefits look like? Sometimes the benefits aren't actually in the offer letter, and you have to go poke the hiring manager or the HR team or the recruiter. What are the bennies? What are the bennies? What are the bennies? Um, if you have, good, open, candid, transparent communication prior to that, you might have actually seen benefits prior.
Hmm.
And usually some benefits are standard package. So they'll just go, yeah, here's our bennies. Um, but then often there's benefits that are harder to kind of quantify. And some of those are uh, can be a challenge to negotiate through. So we can talk about some of the negotiation that I've done in the past. General benefits like 401k, maybe some stock options, health, what level of healthcare are there, and how does that all add up? And then there's usually a bonus component too. Like there's a lot that can go into it, and depending on how quantitative you are and how like you've got maybe you have two offers and you're looking at them back to back and going which one is the most financially best option. It can be hard to quantify. So I can tell you that my it's called a total burden to the company. My total burden to the company is much, much, much more in a dollar amount than the dollar amount that I am paid
Hmm.
because of all the benefits and how it works in. And it can be anywhere from 40% of the low end to literally double or more of what your base salary is, especially if you're going to a company where they're a startup and you're getting either equity or options or all of that. And so, if you're not sure, because it can get very confusing very quickly, I totally recommend going through and getting a third party in, maybe even there's like HR teams that like consultant type things that you can go ask or lawyers to figure out like what does this actually mean? What's my expected ROI on this? How much of that equity can matriculate and how long do you have to be there? And wow, suddenly you start, beautiful mind moment,
Yeah.
right? Um, and then what motivates you? So do you get to go to professional development every year? Like when as we're recording this, Black Hat, DEF CON, B-Sides Las Vegas, they're all like summer camp is coming quick.
Yeah.
Do you get to go? Um, and let's talk the whole spectrum. So I've mentees on the whole range of, they work at a really amazing startup, and the whole company just shuts down and goes all in, room, board, tickets, dinner, activities, all done.
Oh, that's great.
And then I've got friends that work for professional services, and in professional services, company does not get paid unless you're working. So if you don't work, no pay to company, no pay to you.
Hmm.
So, well, yeah, sure, we'll give you the time off. We're not going to buy you a badge. We're not going to pay for drinks. We're not going to get you food or your lodging or your travel. And oh, by the way, the time off actually counts towards your 2 weeks a year that you have towards vacation.
Yeah. So yeah. So we're not really
Well,
doing anything for you.
yeah, yeah, we'll let you take vacation, bud. Have
Yeah.
fun. Um, and then sometimes again, not only do the benefits and the offer letter actually talk through this, sometimes the information that you're actually looking for is in the employee handbook.
Hmm.
So might be sitting there and going, huh, boy, I asked for the benefits package and this doesn't talk about what I wanted to talk about. And then you send back out and then you get the response and you're back and forth and back and forth. And it's actually the answer is, well, we're reevaluating the employee handbook. So the one that we can send you is the draft, but it's not confirmed. Ah, uncertainty in my life. Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so I, just to kind of distill down what you're saying, you get your offer letter, it says $85,000, but you've really got to think. And okay, so you got two offer letters. Really, congratulations. You've been following Stefan's series to a T. Good for you. One's 85, one's 95,000, right? So it seems obvious that there's a $10,000 benefit to take job B over job A, right? Who wouldn't? But as Stefan's laying out, really think about it, right? So the professional service company tells you that you're allowed to take your vacation and go to Vegas and pay for yourself and everything. Whereas, company B, let's say it's the $85,000 company, they will take you to Vegas as a company-wide trip, no expectation that you work, everybody have a good time, right? So as you mentioned, that's very difficult to quantify. Yeah, you could account for the flight, the hotel, the food, but it's I think in its aggregate, it's worth more than just the expense report associated with it.
And then
I'd also
you throw a Sands class on top of that, and you're
yeah.
at 10K.
Yeah, exactly. 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 So you really have to think through it. And also, we talked about this in the interview series. So if you haven't watched that yet, check it out. Card up there. We talked about this, but really thinking through what is the potential vertical growth and horizontal growth of you as a professional. Is this a dead end job? Because if it is, 10 grand sounds great, but it's not worth a dead end position, right? Because you're going to have to leave anyways to go get a better job that has some growth potential. So if they're going to invest in you and grow you, that is worth more than 10 grand potentially, right? Again, you might need cash now because you got a situation that warrants it. Um, I want to talk about a couple other things. So we haven't talked about how to negotiate yet, and that's always my
Oh, yes.
scariest part. My scariest part is like saying this offer isn't good enough. I want this, and then you're at risk again. But before we do that, something I really want to qualify with people or have them take with it is thinking of other ways that you can be compensated that are just specific to you, right? So say in this example that we're working through, 90 grand is my number that I want. It's my floor, and they offer me 85. And as we're going to talk through in a minute with Stefan, like I ask for 90 and they say no. Well, how can I extract $5,000 worth of value to me from this company? So personally, the company I work for right now, they don't do a shut everything down and send everyone to Black Hat, but I go to Black Hat every year, except COVID, and this year because COVID. But anyways, I'm on that end of the scale. So, but anyways, I said to my boss when I got hired, I said, this is great. Like obviously we didn't meet exactly at the same number, but I said, one thing that's important to me is going to Black Hat and DEF CON every year. I want to be supported financially to go. And from a management perspective, it's okay for me to be out of the office that week. That I'm not in my hotel, because nothing's worse than being like on travel for professional development and being in the hotel working, and you're just like, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. So I got that endorsement as part of my compensation. It's not written down, right? It was a handshake, but to me that was valuable. Another one, just to kind of get you thinking through how you can find things that matter to you. One thing that I did at a previous job was, hey, you guys can't really pay well. What about if I get every other Friday off? I'll still work 80 hours every 2 weeks. I'll work 9-hour days, and I'll take every other Friday off. So I get 3-day weekends twice a month that don't take in my vacation. And they did it. And yeah, occasionally I worked on my day off, like 15 minutes, an hour for surge things, right?
We're in security, of course.
Yeah, exactly. But on every other Friday, I take my kids to school. You know what I mean? Every other Friday, I pick my kids up from school. Every other Friday, I go to lunch with my wife. There's real value to me in having that extra day off, which isn't really a day off because they're still getting my work done. But to me, that's worth more than, I mean, 5 grand over a year, which is like what? That's like $300 a month, which is like less than $100 a week, which isn't cheap chump change. But for me, the trade-off is it's okay. Like I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and there's so many other levers that you can pull. So I can talk about some of the ones that I've pulled in the past, which was, and I did get these written down. It's not because I don't trust the person that I'm talking with. It's because I don't trust their replacement, who I've never met and isn't targeted because I don't know when they're going to leave.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so some of those are that I can continue to write and make content and publish it under my own brand.
Yep.
And then if they want to share my content, they absolutely can, and I encourage them to do. I want them to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button.
Yeah.
Um, but that's so that's one of the things. And then there are more. So opportunities to like literally have them write in writing, to be a part of maybe a leadership development program, or to have one-on-one time with the CEO, or to have, mentorship, or like all of the different things. Maybe it's introducing you to people in positions that you want to grow into. There are so many other things that you can do, and you can get, depending on where you are, you can get plenty of that in writing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's just, to me, it's always the negotiation is always about the number. It's always about the money, and it always feels very confrontational and icky. And and these other things that we're talking about are very thought provoking and very innovative, and people are interested in having these conversations because if they say no, I can't do that, it doesn't feel like you're reaching an impasse with a number.
yep. And I had another one of them that I had. I was able to convince the company to pay for, maybe not new certifications, but in writing, pay for the upkeep on all
Hmm.
of my certifications
Hmm.
as a lever, which, as everybody knows, upkeep on certs can be pretty darn expensive.
Yep.
So, not a part of any of my other benefits, but then, I go through, I give them a receipt and I get reimbursed for it, and it comes out of a different pot of money than HR. So let's go through and switch and talk about actual dollar
Yeah. All
negotiation.
right. Yeah. So this might be why half the people clicked on the link. Let's talk about it. How do you negotiate? They're offering 85 and you want 90, or you want 150. Like I'm sure that there's some best practices that you should follow, Stefan. So let's have it. You got your offer letter in hand.
Yes. So I've negotiated, or stood I didn't negotiate. I've stood in between and helped both clients and candidates when I was leading my recruiting company on this. And it it can be fun, it can be terrifying, because every time you do that, you're potentially going longer, or you're putting it back to them, and they might, and I've seen companies go, "You know what? Not worth the fight. I'm out." So that is a risk that you're taking.
Yeah.
And then also there's another risk in the timeline. And that timeline risk is, many of the offers that you get are going to be exploding offers. You have 24, 48, 72 hours to respond yes, or the offer disappears. And why do clients do that? They do that because they know you're hunting for other options, and they know they want you, and they want you now. And the
Hmm.
longer, like, time kills all deals. So the longer they give you to make a decision, the less likely you are to come on board. And I've seen that from the candidate side a number of times. Super flexible clients. Candidate said, "Yeah, I need a little bit longer." Deal goes off the table. So um, you get the offer and you don't like it. 10% is usually a good kind of rule of thumb. So if they offer you 90 and you want 95, and you go up by the general rule of 10% at 99, they'll counter offer with 95 maybe. Or maybe they'll just say that offer is the offer.
Okay, so let me ask you this though, from a professional perspective, whatever the offer is,
Mhm.
80, 90, 100, if I come back with, thank you very much for the offer, I really appreciate it. Would like is the verbiage, would you be willing to go 10% more? And not say 10% more, but say 110 for the 100,000 offer or 99 for the 90,000. Is that completely appropriate, completely reasonable? The business doesn't take it as a slight.
Does it matter if the business takes that as a slight?
Well, I mean, if they rescind the offer, it's going to be painful.
It might be. So that gets back down to, what leverage do you have? And are you in a good place now or not? If you're
Mhm.
not in a good place, you could take a chance, but it's a chance. So what is your risk appetite? I generally have a much higher risk appetite than most of my peers and family. Is that great? Yeah, it means I've got plenty of scar tissue from getting burned.
Yeah.
But also with my candidates, the average when we were negotiating through was about 6% increase over the general negotiating that we did. And some of my candidates said, "I got this, I'm doing it." And the next thing I know is there a new offer letter comes across my desk, and they're like, "Oh, good job, guy." Or they say, "Hey, Stefan, I don't know how to do this. I'm uncomfortable. Can you do the negotiation for me? This is kind of what I'm looking for." And then I just go back to the company and say, the candidate asked for this number. And usually that negotiation goes by in very short sentences
Hmm.
because it's getting to yes quickly.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. So, but I mean, so as a rule of thumb, you would recommend to people not go over 10%, unless the offer was just so out of whack with market. But for the most part, 10% is kind of a good rule of thumb,
About 10%. Um,
almost with the expectation that they come back at whatever 6% would have been.
Yeah, and that is kind of changing a little bit now. So when we look at more formal companies where they have like the individual contributor 3 or the whatever, TPM, technical project manager, sometimes
Hmm.
they have those bands, and you just say, "Hey, I think that band's a little bit too low. Can you come up?"
Hmm.
Um, there are so many different ways that are to have a successful negotiation, and I've told companies myself that's not going to work. Can you come back with something better? And just literally said that. And well, what would you need? Well, let's talk. Let's have a discussion. Like, how creative can we be? I'm
Hmm.
willing to turn the number down in order for these benefits up. Maybe it's stock options. Maybe like at that point, I'm taking a bet on the company and myself, of course, because we have to perform. But the more invested I am in the company's performance, the more harder I'm going to run.
Right.
So, yeah, there's there's so many different things you can do, and a lot of this is later stage in your career, or unless you're going to a startup. With a startup, you have so many more opportunities to be super creative.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, hey, can I get a rental car? Uh, maybe. Okay, that's a tax write-off, so I guess it would actually only be this much less. So if we paid 30 that to you, that would only be 20, and yeah, you know what? That's actually less than a 10%, so sure.
You got a car. Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, company car or company phone. I mean, you see that all the time. Get your phone paid for, get
Yeah.
your internet paid for. Um, yeah. So I think that those are all really really interesting points. Just to kind of wrap it up, now that people feel empowered, they got the offer letter, they know how to come up with other creative ways to get paid or negotiate. What are you know don't do this, do not do this. What any of those, do you have any of those practices of don't do this?
Wait too long.
Yeah.
Yeah, that waiting too long is the biggest thing that I see, and I mentioned it before, but time kills all deals. Time kills all deals. So if you have if you have this offer and it expires on Friday, but you think you're going to get another offer that it's at a different company that could be cooler and it doesn't come until Monday, and you ask for an extension and they don't give you the extension, then which company do you like more, and are you betting on yourself with that other company enough to go through? Like, funny, just like in security, this all comes back to risk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're in a good field, man.
So, yeah, the biggest thing that I see is time. Is time, and it's chasing the birds that are in the bush versus in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And that like I can't tell you how many times. How many times do I see that as an option? Um, and then let's see, something else is just coming back with something completely unrealistic. Like if they tell you that if they've gone through and said, "Hey, this is the best that we can do because it's the top of the band that you're in. That can't go any higher," and you ask twice to go up higher, they're just going to rescind because that
Yeah.
means you don't follow directions.
Yeah, that's a great point. That is a very good point. Yeah, it's like professional. It's a professional conversation, right? It's devoid of emotion, or it should be, and it really is a business deal. You're making a business deal, so acting like a donkey is definitely not in your best interest in any capacity.
It is, and uh, the other thing that I'll just tell companies is I'm competitive at this number.
Hmm.
I'm competitive at this number. Can you get anywhere close to it? I didn't give them a range, right? I didn't
Yep.
say because if you get my salary range right now is $60,000 to 300,000.
Yeah.
Guess what they heard?
Yeah. 60,000. Actually, it's funny you say that. I actually, so I recently learned this technique from someone, and it's actually based on science, and it's quite clever. But if you give someone a range, right? Like let's just say that you're like, oh, I'm going to work. Yeah, you start with the upper number, and
Anchoring.
and then give them the lower number. So you say, to your point, like, so what kind of money are you looking for? Like, this is typically even like a very first conversation. Like, what kind of money are you looking for? Because is this even going to make sense? And you could say,
Mhm.
oh yeah, no, I'm looking for like between 230 and 180, right? And like in reality, I'm completely cool with 180, and but I've just anchored them at 230. So 180 is a steal for them, right? But if you say 180 to 230, they're anchored at 180. We're not going to 230, Jerry, ever, you know?
I
So
just say I'm competitive at, or I start negotiating at 300
yeah,
or 250, whatever it happens to be. Like, and maybe that's hourly, maybe that's whatever, but hey, that's where I start negotiating.
yeah. Yeah,
And
and I would
whew,
encourage you, if you are going to negotiate your salary, specifically the dollar amount, right? We talked about these other cool things that you can get, and I think there's a lot more play and a lot more um, liberal acceptance of that. But when you're attacking the number, I would strongly encourage you to do your research, do your market research, understand what reasonable market value is for that role, for your experience, that area, location, that company size, right? Do it and then be realistic. Like if you do all that research and a competitive market value is $90,000 and you're asking for 180, like you are being unrealistic with yourself, right? So I think that really is worth mentioning too. Like, yeah, like everybody wants more money, right? And if you can get it, get it. But don't shoot yourself in the foot just out of greed.
absolutely. Like, this is a business deal. Both parties have to win.
Hmm.
Both parties have to win. And if you get the thing that comes across the desk, $100,000. Cool. Response 110, 105. That took 2 minutes of emails, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
everybody's happy.
I love it. All right, Stefan. So this has been good. This is part of this whole security with Stefan or cybersecurity job with Stefan series. We're going to be getting into how to crush the first 90 days pretty soon. But thank you so much, Stefan.